Well, hello, my radio friends. Now, this is going to be installment number 2 on this Model 40 Power Pack restoration. I come to you tonight with good news and some not so good news. And let's first start with the good news. One could take a look and see that I've got this third compartment fully cleaned out. And as I alluded to the other day, these power packs are divided into 3 sections, and I'll mention it real quick, maybe because this gives us a little better visual. Right here to the left is your main power transformer. From here to here is your 2 main filter chokes, and this compartment has your speaker choke and your filter caps and your bypass caps. In fact, let me show you. Here are the caps located on the very bottom end of this particular compartment. They're, of course, buried in tar all the way at the bottom. And sitting on top of those caps is what you see here, your speaker choke. Now, this is essentially the identical construction as most all AK transformers for the period. If one ever goes into a Model 20 audio transformers or AK breadboards, everything, one's going to see this type of construction. And I just wanted also to touch on real quickly, this gives you an idea how clean components come out when one freezes them versus trying to melt them. I highly recommend freezing. Melting is such a nightmare. I did it one time years ago, and I promised myself I'd never do it again. But anyway, the caps were seated like so. This choke was seated on top, just like this. Sometimes I find them orientated to a 45 that way. This one was orientated to a 45 this way. And what I did was I took my handy little chisel one sees here, and I take a little hammer and I just meticulously chip all around this compartment. Just work around the outer edges all the way around until you could locate that choke and which way it's orientated, and then clean it out and chip it out accordingly. As you can see, everything came out nice and clean. The compartment is nice and clean. Now, the bad news, and I warn everybody in doing this procedure, be careful you do not nick this choke. Well, guess what Dave did? If one looks closely, right there, there's a little spot right there. That's where I nicked it with the chisel as I was playing around, and that's all it takes. The windings on this choke are there's a very thin layer of paper over those windings. There's very little protection. So if one nicks through this paper, the choke is done, and this is no exception. The good news is, if one looks behind here, I have a Model 44 parts power pack, and I'm going to cannibalize the choke out of this one. The 44, for what it's worth, and this gives you I'm glad I brought it up because it gives you a good idea. The 44, one will notice the Model 44 was the first AK metal box set that had a removable cap can. Identifiable by these 2 screws one sees here. If it doesn't have 2 screws here, it's not a removable cap can. But like I say, once again, the Model 44 and everything after, you will find these 2 screws. And with that said, one could lift this board here, remove these 2 screws, lift the little cover, and cut the wires, and this can will slide out. It's not buried in tar. The can itself is not fastened to this can. The cap can is not fastened to this brown can in tar. It slides out. Now, that particular can itself has tar in it with the caps and the choke. And what I do is I put that singular can in the freezer overnight, put it in a bag in the morning, smack it against some smooth concrete, and everything comes right out. The 44 is such a joy. 44 and later is such a joy to restore for that reason. And the 40 is such a nightmare to restore for the same reason. It's just a project to get into. Now, I do want to touch on the importance of identifying what these 3 wires one sees here. Now, these are the 3 wires coming out of the center compartment going to this cap can. This first wire here goes to your first filter cap. If one was to measure this, this goes right to your rectifier filament. The second wire, if one was to measure that, you would read the resistance of the first choke between the filament and this wire. So this will go to your second filter cap. And this third wire here, this actually you will read from the filament of the 80 up front here to here, and one will read 1200 ohms or thereabouts, which will be the reading after the first 2 chokes. It's imperative one locates these 3 wires, and it's imperative one doesn't cut these wires off fully, because if one does, then the power pack is rendered inoperative if one cannot access these 3 wires from this center compartment. But typically, I'd be honest with you, I have never had one that I weren't able to identify these wires. I had one that I inadvertently cut these real short, and I had to solder down inside here. Not a big deal. But look for these 3 wires. They don't always come out of, make it even more difficult for you guys, don't always come out of this corner right here. I've had 2 come out this end, and I've had a third come out this corner here. So just keep that in mind. Look for those 3 wires. But anyway, that's where Dave sits this evening. The good news is, like I said, I've got it all cleaned out, and this weekend's going to be a new perf board in here and new caps and all wired in. The bad news is, like I say, I damaged this choke after trying to be so careful. But the good news is I have that Model 44 back there just waiting to donate me its filter or a speaker choke. So anyway, that's where Dave sits this evening. Just thought I'd share where I am at. The Model 40, I mean, it is, I have to say, it is a booger bear. And it's certainly, like I alluded to earlier, it's one not for the novice. Oh, one other thing, if I may, just to show you. This filter cap block, it is a chore to get this loosened from inside. I had to take this chisel and just continually work my way all the way around, and it took some time. I bet I spent probably 30 minutes, 45 minutes just getting this out. But then once you break it loose, it's a little difficult to lift out of there. So what I do is I screw a screw into it. This is just like a long sheetrock screw, and I grab it with a pair of vice grips and lift this out from inside. So just a little tidbit of advice. Anyway, there's where I sit this evening. A little rougher wear, but progress was made. I will keep you abreast as things proceed. And once again, if you have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask. And until next time.